Hey, welcome. We're going to walk through modeling the train body here real quick, or as fast as we can. So you want to look at the body and start to identify a shape that you can model, that you can use for some 3D tool like the extrusion. And so for me, you can find my pen, I'm going to recognize this face here maintains its same cross section throughout all the way back here, and so we're going to sketch this, okay, and extrude it back as far as we need to go. Now the distance back, if I follow that down, they don't actually give it to me so easily. They do give me the total part is 1.5, or sorry, 5.5, and this distance here, okay, is 1.75 between those. So it's the difference between those two numbers, which is 3.75. All right, and you are going to have to figure out the width here. What color pen I got here? So you got to make sense of this shape. To me, it looks like I've got a rectangle and a circle, and the rectangle is 2 by right here 0.875. Okay, that goes to that corner. And then the circle, there's a radius right here. So give you the radius. Inventor's going to want you to build the diameter. Do note we're going to switch to Inventor, but they're referencing where the center is out here, the height of it from the bottom. And if you trace this down to right here, you can see the arrow pointing to that. Here's the opposite one, the 1 inch. So it's centered out of the two. The circle is going to be centered, makes sense. And then the height of the circle is 1.35 above. That's the bottom. If you trace that over, that is the bottom there. Okay, so start new sketch. Grab that. Grab a work plane. And we're going to use a rectangle. It's going to be 2 inches by 0.875. We're going to make a circle. The circle in that drawing had a radius of 0.75, so double the 0.75, you get 1.5. And now we're going to dimension the center of that circle in this place. So we've got to get the proper height, was 1.375, and the proper horizontal distance was 1 inch to center it up. We can use the trim tool now to clean this up. And we're going to extrude this. We're going to go in the other direction. The total, which is 5.5. Minus the 1.75 should be 3.75. Or you can just type that in, 3.75. All right, so there you go. Look at that. It's already looking like a train. So after that, you got to figure out what you're going to do next. And we're going to take this section on the back. We're going to keep on going. It's just this. We're going to get this section right here. I'm not going to worry about the curve right now. I'm just going to worry about the fact that it's kind of blockish, rectangular. We'll come back and just slice the top off. All right, and we already know that we've got to go an extra 1.5 right here. The height they don't give you so clearly here. And if you do look at the other drawing, they give it to you. The width is the same. We can see that it's smooth. Kind of get rid of some of this stuff. All right, it's a smooth face. We assume it's the same on the other side, which we can even see if we flip over to right here. We can see the other side is smooth. Okay. The back, though, is going to help you understand the height. Okay, so we can see this. There's a center point, and this right here is going up to the leader line, is pointing to us a radius. So this is like a circular arc where that's the center, and we've got the radius. So if that's the center, that's really kind of the distance. The vertical distance right here is 2.35. Now that's not the height of the train because that's elevated a little bit. So we do have to compensate for this little distance right here, which is 0.375. So if we add these two numbers, you do get the total height. I'm just going to make sure I'm over that. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and make it 3 inches to start. I want to keep this the front, so I'm going to rotate around. I can hover, right click, and start new sketch. Rectangle. Get a point-to-point constraint. Oh, what just happened there? My mouse. Okay, so we want to be 2 inches wide and 3 inches tall. And that's a little taller than I need to be, which is good. I'm going to extrude back 1.75. So now those two parts make the total 1.5. Alright, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to chop off that top there, and I'm going to start a new sketch on the back. And I saw that the radius, it said the radius of that arc was 2.35. Okay, well, Inventor's wanting a diameter right here, right? So let's do 2.35 times 2. Should be 4.7. And they located the center somewhere in the back of the train, right? So let's get that precise. It is centered, so that's easy. I can dimension from here to an edge. If you ever have trouble, like even though you can see that edge, you have trouble getting that dimension, know that you might need to project geometry. Take that line that you can see and bring it onto your sketch. That can help. So dimension from that point to this line, and that needs to be 1 inch, so it's centered. The height, though, was from, make sure you get that point, to here, was 0.375. There you go. Alright, so basically I want to keep what's inside the circle and I want to just chop off that end right there. So just a simple thing, I'm just going to use a concentric circle, make it bigger than that and bigger than those corners. And I'm going to extrude cut everything inside. Think of this as like a donut ring. So my train that I've already created is safe inside here because I'm only going to extrude cut here. So finish sketch, E to extrude. I'm going to change this to a cut, and I'm going to choose the profile. Okay, so you can see that's how that's going to just pass through and slice away, just like that. Perfect. Okay, next up we're going to deal with the side here. The train conductor would sit here on the side, and we're gonna get that. Now, when you look at this, if you really look close, okay, it is not just a semicircle. There is a semicircle here, and the center is right here, which is brought in from the back edge. This appears to be horizontal, so it appears to not curve down as well. Think circular. If you kept just a circle, that it would curve back down and kind of be pointing down. This looks flat. So I'm going to use a rectangle for this width to bring in, and then I'll do a semicircle. If I trace up right here, I can see the width of that flat area. And it is, what, 0.25? Now, they don't give you the height of this, but they do give you the radius of that circle. So that's basically the height, right? Or, well, half the height. So if the radius of this is a ½ inch, that means the diameter is 1 inch. So I want to make a little rectangle here that's 1 inch by 0.25. So let's start a new sketch on the face, the side face. And I'm going to use my rectangle tool. I want to make sure I get a constraint to that edge. There you go. See that little icon? Okay, and I'm going to go 0.25 wide, 1 tall. There you go. Now, turn that tool off. This rectangle is stuck to the side, but it is movable. I didn't dimension it into place. So if we go back here, I don't have a dimension from this bottom corner or from the top corner, but I do from the center. I can trace that line back. Here's the dimension line, follow that to 1.75, follow it to the other dimension line, take that extension line back so you know where it was referenced, and it is the bottom. So I want to be 1.75 to the center here. Okay, so let's make a point at the center. If you didn't know this, you can use the point tool. You can hover and follow closely along a segment, and you'll find the midpoint. It highlights green. You also look at the little gray box. You get a point-to-point constraint instead of a point-to-line constraint. So right there, point-to-point, that is the midpoint. I'm going to choose that, and I'm going to now dimension that point to be precisely 1.75 units from the bottom of the train. Now, right click, OK, turn that tool off. Now try to move your rectangle and you notice that I can't. So if I try to grab these lines and move it, it is stuck. It's been dimensioned into place. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my circle and my center is going to be right there. That is the center of the circle. And I'm going to make this have a radius that basically just goes right to that corner. That gives me the 1/2 inch radius. Click that. Okay, I'll move that dimension line a little bit. And now I can just use the trim tool and clean it up. So you can trim away this. Let's see, that, and I'll leave behind basically the rectangle and the semicircle, and we're going to extrude that across. E to extrude, choose these two profiles, change it to cut. I want to go all the way across it, stop short. We can change the distance here to 2. We could also change the extents to all. Just make sure you get all the way across. There you go. If you haven't, hit save. Make sure you're saving your work as you go. I'm not going to, just for the sake of time in the video. Okay, so other features that we need to get. We've got the general shape of the train and the big cutouts. What I see left are the holes. The axle holes, these holes on the front for the cow catcher to attach. This for the smokestack where the steam comes out. And if I look at the bottom, there is also a hole for the hitch to connect to other cars. All right, let's go ahead and just take care of the front first so we can understand the basic idea of how to create a hole. I'm not going to use a circle and do an extrude cut. I'm going to define where the center of those holes are, and then I'm going to use the hole tool. I can see here that the diameter of these holes, it's all going to be the same, times 3. Lets me know that the 3 are the same. The diameter is 0.125, and this little T with the arrow on the bottom is depth. Think the top of the T is like the surface, and how far down from the surface are we going is also 1/8. So I need 1/8 and 1/8. 1/8 diameter, 1/8 depth, all 3 holes. I am going to have to come back and dimension them into place. But let's get this started. Let's go to my front view. How to define where a hole is you simply make a point. So I'm going to make 3 points. I will dimension them into place here in a second, okay? So you make 3 points, and then it's going to be the dimension tool. Let's figure out. The middle one makes sense that it is right here, exactly 1 inch from the edge. Makes sense, it's centered. Height-wise, follow this extension line over. Do you see the arrow tip touching it? Okay, and sandwiched between here, it's the 0.625 height. You can see that is from the bottom. So 0.625 height and centered. So let's take care of that one. 0.625 height and centered. So from there to there, 1 inch. Now let's get this one right here. Follow the extension line down. There's the arrow tip, and you can see it's basically 3/8, 0.375 from the side. And the height-wise, you got to trace that over. Right here, this gets a little messy. That 0.625 is between there. This is smaller. It's sandwiched. They kind of tucked it over here. It is messy. So, but obviously that one's bigger than this one. So look, compare the decimals. 0.125 is way smaller than 0.625. So just kind of using that and thinking for a second about the size of the numbers should help you identify that this right here and that's this arrow is making the turn. So we've got the 1.25, the 1/8 high, and the 3/8 over. So right here, we'll do the 1/8 high and the 3/8 over. All right, the height of this one is the same. Go ahead and get the height first, 1/8. And then the distance is also the same from the edge. It is symmetrical. They didn't dimension it that way, but I'm going to do it here. All right, something's already selected. I hit escape twice, dimension again, here to the left edge, and here you go. This should be 0.375. It is symmetrical. Finish sketch. So all I've done is created points. I have not created any 3D. I haven't created any closed loops even. But for drilling a hole, all we need to know is where to put the center of the drill bit. So now I'm going to use the hole tool. And Inventor automatically it guesses that I want to make holes where all these are. If I didn't, I can hold the control key and I can go through and kind of auto select or manually select where I want the holes, but I want all of them. Now remember that I didn't want them to go termination all the way through. I wanted set distances, so I'm going to change that. And then right here in the diagram, it makes it easy. I can see the depth is going to be 1/8, so 0.125, and this is the diameter, was also 0.125. They're pretty little. Okay, you can see the shape of the bottom, which I can control right here, what kind of drill point, if it's going to be flat or if it's going to have just a little bevel on the inside, like from the tip of the drill bit. I'm not going to worry about that. You can change and specify the angle of that as well. That's a little beyond where we're at today. Click OK. Done. Holes made. Now, I'm going to go ahead and make the ones on the side next. So now you have the idea of how to make holes. So it's Start Sketch. Use the point tool. I need some points. Let's figure out where they go precisely. Alright, so I see this one on the back. This is an axle. Trace the extension line down. It looks like it's 1 inch from the back. And the other one is 4.5 inches from the back. Both are from the back. So let's get those. 1 inch and 4.5 inches. Next, let's get the height. I can see that they are on the same extension line, so the heights are the same, and it's a 1/2 inch. Instead of dimensioning that too, I'll show you another trick. I turn that tool off by hitting Escape. This is a horizontal constraint. I can make these 2 points have to stay on the same horizontal line. If I choose this one and this one, they auto-correct, or this one automatically moves to become horizontal to this one. This one didn't move because it's stuck in place because of two numerical constraints. Okay, so that's it. Finish sketch. And now let's double check the size of these holes. Okay, so right here I can see this leader line from the hole, and this is a thread note. This is not a regular hole. This is a hole that has threads. The first number, 1/4, is the diameter, and this gives me the depth, 0.875. So let's start with that. Diameter and depth. Okay, so let's use the hole tool. Notice that they both selected, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to look at different hole types down here. This is a threaded hole. It's called a tapped hole. When you tap a hole, that's adding the threads. So we're going to choose a tapped hole. Inventor's taking just a second here to process. Looks like we're thinking and thinking. There we go. And right here, size. This is the diameter when they say size. I'm going to change this to a 1/4 inch. And automatically the threads, I get a drop down for what types of threads. This has to do with how many threads per inch. Okay, so how coarse or how fine those threads are, and they said 1/4 20. It happened to be on that one already. We'll just leave the direction the same, but you could decide if it's traditional right-hand threads, or which righty tighty lefty loosey idea. This would make it backwards. So lefty would then go turning left would make it tight. So we're gonna leave it like that. And let me modify the depth here. The depth was supposed to be 0.875, I believe. Let's double check. Yes, the little depth symbol says 0.875. Now that's the total depth of the hole. Right here you could specify how much the hole is threaded, so you don't have to have the whole hole threaded, but I'll go ahead and make that match. They didn't specify that kind of detail. And we will say OK. Now we'll take a look, zoom in, and look at that. You can see that it's threaded. Alright, to get the other side, we're going to do this. We're going to mirror those features to their side. To mirror them in 3D, I need a work plane, a plane that goes right down the middle. Basically, it splits this in half. We would agree probably that this is a symmetrical shape, so where would be the line of symmetry? Oh, it's 3D. It's not a line of symmetry, it is a plane of symmetry. So to cut it in half, we're going to go to the work planes, drop down to get choices, and I want to find the midplane between two planes. Basically, I want to slice this guy in half by choosing the two sides of the train. Right side, left side. There you go. I've now created the work plane. It shows up in my browser right here. You can turn the visibility on and off if needed. Okay, so we're now going to mirror this. In pattern, this is the mirror button. Okay, so there's rectangular pattern, circular pattern, mirror. These are very common tools for us. We're going to use the mirror tool. Right now, Inventor is asking me to choose the features, so I'm going to choose this hole. And the other one, I made them at the same time. They both selected. Once I've selected my features, I switch to the mirror plane and choose the plane in which they're going to get mirrored over, and then say OK. It should have created them. I'll rotate it around, and voila, they're there. I don't have anything else to mirror across, so I can turn this work plane off. Basically, just hide it. Okay. Now, while we're on the thought of work planes, let's go ahead and make the hole for the smokestack on top. Basically, I want a work plane that's up here. I could create an offset from plane and choose one of these horizontal planes and then just kind of pull this up. just to give myself a drawing surface that's horizontal right above it, but I'd really like it to be directly, like perfectly on the cylinder here for the steam engine. All right, so I got a better one. Let's drop this down and look. We've got tangent to a surface and parallel to a plane. Tangent to a surface means you're going to come and skim it. You're going to touch it instead of have a gap, and you're not going to slice through it. So you'll just skim the edge. So we're going to be tangent to the surface. So if I choose that surface, we're tangent to it, but it doesn't know what angle. You can think of, gosh, I don't know, there used to be this thing where you have a skateboard, no wheels on it, and you put it on top of like a drum, and you try to balance yourself. Some kind of balance board, I don't know exactly what they're called. It stays tangent to it, but it still rocks up and down. So while we're tangent to this, it's going to have the freedom to rotate. So we need a plane to define the angle. So we're going to choose that plane. That did not work. Let's undo. And choose that again. Tangent to a surface, parallel to a plane. So right here it says select curved surface or plane. So let's choose that, and then let's grab this horizontal. It's like maybe something was auto selected. Let me hit escape a couple times. All right, tangent to a surface and parallel to a plane. I'm going to start with the plane this time and then grab the, hey, look at that. Okay, that's what I wanted. And maybe it was that I hit escape and not the order, but that's what we're looking for. So we're going to start a new sketch right here. And again, making a hole, we're going to use a point. All right. Now, I do need to just make sure I know exactly where that point's going. So that point I can see is 0.875 from the back, and they didn't really make it clear that it's centered, but let's just assume it's centered. I guess this does go right through the middle, so I think that's safe right there. So it's centered and 0.875 back. So we're going to dimension from the front of the train to that point is going to become 0.875. That's 7/8. And then it needs to be centered. So let's dimension from there to here. Should be exactly 1 inch. I was close, a little off. Finish sketch. And now we're going to use the hole tool there. So what size hole do I need? Follow the leader line, a diameter of a 1/2 inch, and a depth of a 1/4. So 1/2 inch diameter, 1/4 depth, hole tool right there. We're just going to do a standard hole, not a tapped hole. And this will be a 1/4 inch and a 1/2 inch diameter. That's going to receive our smokestack. There you go. The work plane is done, so let's hide it. So I think I can right click even here on it when I hover over it. Yep, visibility, you can check it right there. You can also come over here and right check in the browser, right click, sorry, and check visibility. Okay, we have one last, and that's on the back. We do want our steam engine to pull some other cars, hopefully. That would be nice, that it is created to do some real work. So let's start a new sketch on the back, and you should have the idea right now. It's a point, and the point is going to get dimensioned. Guess what? I'm assuming it's going to be centered, so let's make that 1 inch. We just need to figure out the height. Okay, the height from the bottom is that 3/8, 0.375. So let's go from here to the bottom, 0.375. And let's look at the leader line so we can get some understanding of size. Diameter, 1/4 inch, depth, 1/2. So kind of the exact opposite of the smokestack. So 1/4 inch diameter, 1/2 inch depth. So 1/2 inch depth. This time we're going to just switch these, 1/4 inch diameter. Just a regular hole, simple hole, not doing taps, threads, anything like that. Okay, and that is almost done. The last little detail that we might see, we don't see in these sketches, but some others, are applying fillets to the train, making it just clean up the edges. So let's do that real quick. I'm going to apply fillets of only 1/10 of an inch. And I'm going to go through now. Didn't mean to change that. Something that, let me cancel and start over. I hit tab and it kind of messed me up. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go through and just fillet all these edges. Just going to soften our train up. And there's going to be another segment over there. You can actually pick through the points. Let's see. There, there, there. I think I got them all. So that just softens it, makes it look a little nicer. I think we won't fill at the corners of where holes are. Apply. And the only place maybe I would consider changing would be that, because of those holes where that's filling in. But that's fine. We'll deal with it. There you go. That is your train.